Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into something pretty cool, a platform called DragonSource. And we're going to figure out how it can possibly serve a single creator, a whole company, and even an entire country, all using the same basic tech. How does that even work?
So, yeah, that's the big question we're digging into. You've got a solo artist, a fast-growing business, and a government agency that's all about security. How do you build one thing that works for all of them? Well, the secret sauce, as you'll see, is all in its really smart tiered setup.
Okay, so here's the game plan. First, the big picture. Then we'll get into the weeds of the consumer, business, and government tiers. And we'll wrap it all up with a side-by-side to make it super clear. Let's do this.
All right, let's jump right in. The best way to think about DragonSource is that it's not just one platform, it's actually three distinct worlds living on the same foundation. Each world has its own set of rules, its own tools, its own level of support, but they all share the same DNA. So where do we start? Let's begin at the ground floor. This is the one you or I would probably run into first. It's the B2C tier, which is just a fancy way of saying it's for consumers. And its whole mission is to basically supercharge your personal productivity and creativity.
Yeah, the target here is all about the individual. I'm talking about freelancers trying to juggle a bunch of projects, students trying to keep their notes from becoming a total mess. Really, it's for anyone who just wants to get their life or their creative work a little more organized.
And the features? They totally line up with that me-first focus. You get your own little AI sidekick, tools to make cool content and images, and there's even a social community baked in. It's basically your personal command center for getting stuff done.
So, how did they get so many people using it? Easy. The price. It's zero. Yep, a big, fat zero. It's that classic freemium model, right? Get everyone in the door with a really solid free version, and then, down the line, some of those folks will be happy to pay for more.
Okay, so to wrap up the consumer tier, what you're getting is solid reliability that doesn't cost you a dime. 99.5% uptime for a free tool, that's pretty darn good. And the support, community help and email is exactly what you'd expect and need at this level. But what happens when your little solo project blows up and suddenly you've got a team? Well, that's where the platform grows with you. We're moving up a level to the B2B, or business tier. And this one is built from the ground up for teams to work together and for managers to, manage.
This is where the whole mindset shifts, right? It goes from me to we. We're talking about tools for small businesses, for big teams inside huge companies, for basically any group of people who need to get things done together and do it securely. And of course, the features get a serious upgrade. Now you're not just a user, you're an admin. You're managing who can do what, you're plugging it into other software using APIs, which are just little bridges between apps, and you're using things like single sign-on to make logging in easy and safe. Oh, and you get all these dashboards to see how the team is actually doing. And this right here, this shows you the jump in service perfectly. Think about it. Waiting 48 hours for help is one thing when it's your personal project, but for a business, no way. That's why the response time drops from 2 days to just 4 hours. Because, like they say, for a business, time really is money.
The SLA, that's the official promise of how often the service will be working, it gets a big boost too. Now, going from 99.5 to 99.9% might not sound like a huge deal, but trust me, it is. Over a whole year, that tiny difference means way, way less downtime. And for a business relying on this stuff, that's everything. Okay, now we're climbing to the top of the mountain, the B2G, or government tier. And I want to be clear, this isn't just another level up. This is like a completely separate digital fortress. It's designed for when the stakes are as high as they can possibly get. The clients here, for them, security isn't just a checkbox. It's the whole game. We're talking about federal agencies, defense contractors, the people who run our power grids. It really doesn't get more serious than this. And just look at the support response time. This is wild. We went from 48 hours for consumers down to 4 hours for businesses, and now, for government, 15 minutes for critical problems. That's the kind of speed you need when, national security could literally be on the line. The rules and regulations they have to follow also go through the roof. For businesses, something called SOC 2 is pretty standard. But for the government tier, they have to hit FedRAMP High. That's a whole different ballgame.
It's basically the seal of approval you absolutely have to touch the US government's most secret stuff.
And this is a really big one, something called a sovereign cloud. So with the business plan, you might get to pick if your data lives in the US or Europe, but with the government plan, it's a guarantee. All your data stays inside your country's borders, handled only by people who've been cleared. For government, that's not a nice to have. It's a must have.
And the uptime promise? It hits what we call the 4 nines, 99.99%. To give you an idea of what that actually means, we're talking about a system that's designed to be down for less than an hour over an entire year. It is the absolute peak of being reliable.
Okay, so we've looked at each tier on its own. Now for the fun part. Let's stack them up side by side and see how everything really compares. This chart just lays it out so perfectly, doesn't it? You can literally see the promise of reliability climbing with each step. It goes from, hey, this is pretty good for consumers, all the way up to, this cannot fail for the government.
And boom, here it is. This is the big reveal, the master chart. Just look at the progression. Single sign-on doesn't exist for consumers, but it's a must for businesses. Hardware security keys, that's a government-level thing. Or look at how long they keep records. 30 days, then a year, then 7 years. Every single row tells you exactly who that tier was built for. It's so clear. But here's what's really cool. These aren't just 3 separate boxes. There's a path between them. It's built for you to grow. So you can be that freelancer starting out on the free plan. Then you land that huge client. And what do? You just upgrade. Pull all your work into a new business base, invite your new team, and you don't miss a single step. It's a really smooth journey. So let's bring it all home. We started by asking how one platform could possibly serve a creator, a company, and a country. And this is the answer. You build these separate, perfectly tailored worlds. DragonSource meets every user right where they are with exactly what they need. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? As our digital lives get more and more specialized, is this one platform, many worlds idea going to be the future for everything?